Hello everyone and welcome to the final presentation for the Sunview software group. Today we're going to present the new ChangeGear Angular JSON file editor. My name is Evelyn Almeida and my teammates are Luis Enrique Masud and Jean-Luc Hayes. But first we would like to acknowledge all of those who helped us along the way. We would like to give thanks to Tom Lumia and Sean Crocker from Sunview for their support and help in better understanding of the technologies being used. And of course, our two kind Sunview software actors for being patient with us. We would also like to thank Dr. Christensen for all of his help and guidance. On the agenda for this video, we are going to give some background on Sunview. Then we're going to discuss the problem Sunview wants us to fix, requirements for this project, our design. We will give a real-life demo starring two Sunview employees, constraints, applicable standards we used, and finally, trade-offs. Sunview software designs IT service management software to help companies create a responsive IT service environment. Currently, Sunview has a mobile application called ChangeGear. This application allows companies to create an IT service management environment based on individual company needs. The great thing about Sunview's ChangeGear app is that it is customizable, which means that a company is able to pick and choose whatever functionality they want in their app. However, here is the problem. Making changes to a company's app layout is time-consuming for Sunview engineers. The current app layout editing process is as follows. The administrator goes into the database. The administrator receives the JSON layout from the database. The JSON file is locally edited manually. The new JSON file is loaded back into the database. If the JSON is correct, the app renders. If the JSON is incorrect, the app fails to render, and the administrator has to begin the entire process again. The following are the requirements for the Angular JSON file editor. As a Sunview administrator, I want to be able to edit the JSON UI file with validation of my edits, so that when I restart the app, the UI will appear without errors. The acceptance criteria for this requirement is editing can be done using the provided open source JSON Editors API, as requested by Sunview's architect. The second requirement is, as a Sunview administrator, I want the validation to check for errors so that I do not have to find errors manually, as this would take a longer time. The validation should take less than 10 seconds, check for missing fields, and check for incorrect syntax of attribute value pairs. The third requirement is, as a Sunview developer, I want the editor component to be integratable to the current database system, so read and write of the JSON file is possible. Implementation must be compatible with current database read and write methods. The final requirement is that, as a Sunview software developer, I want the editor to execute within an Angular component so that it can be integrated to the current Angular application in use.
Hello, fellow employee.
Hey, buddy.
Can you change the call support icon on the mobile app to say call support with a lowercase s?
I can do that quite quickly, sir. Let me just go into the database and grab the values manually, change them, put them back in, and then you can test that out.
Sweet. Thanks, bud.
Very good, buddy.
Sweet. The icon's gone now.
Ah. Let me try again.
Okay.
There we go. That should be fixed.
Wait, but you didn't make it a lowercase. Now it's still uppercase.
All right.
That's weird. How'd that happen?
I don't know.
It's because there are spaces in it. You press Control Z. Yeah, or you can get it back in there.
How about that one?
You still didn't change my lowercase letter. I still need it lowercase.
All right, buddy. We're gonna make this happen.
If you press the button in the left top right
Buddy,
corner.
let's do our own jobs here. All right, how about that one?
Wow, thanks.
Wow, blazing fast.
Hey, so my boss told me that the lowercase s on call support doesn't look good. So we gotta make that uppercase again.
That's all right. We can change it. I can do it with this new fancy tool I've got.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and log in to our JSON editor. I'll load up the schema and fire that on in. Automatically validates me. It's fantastic. Get that changed right away. You should be good
Wait, you're done already?
already.
Wow, it's perfect.
We're now going to go over the design of our application. We're going to create an Angular component that allows JSON files to be retrieved and stored into the database. The Angular component is also going to be responsible for validating the JSON changes before the file is added back into the database. So the new process is going to be that the administrator is going to go into the JSON editor. The administrator is going to change the JSON file so that the layout can be changed. If the JSON file is edited incorrectly, an error message is going to be displayed as a flag. If the changes made are correct and the JSON has no errors, then after logging out and logging back in, the app should render successfully. We're now going to quickly demonstrate our design. On the left, we can see the user has to input a username and password, log in. The user then is ready to load the schema, which is going to validate the changes made to the JSON file. By clicking Get JSON, the user retrieves the file from the database. We can now see the JSON being displayed in both views. Both of the views have display options like 3 mode, code, text, which can be changed. You also have a search bar depending on the mode you are. We're now going to show the functionality of the search bar, and we're going to also change something in the JSON file so that the app reflects the changes and renders. Using the search bar, we could easily find the element we wanted to change. And by changing the caption, we're changing the JSON code, which will be later sent to the database. We're now going to demonstrate some cases of validation. So if the user changes an attribute, for example, which shouldn't be changed, like captions, a flag is going to come up indicating an error. And this validation is going to occur with multiple attributes throughout the whole JSON. Another great feature, which is going to save Sunview a lot of time, is parsing errors. Those parsing errors could mean that the page would not render successfully, and Sunview would lose a lot of time trying to change it again. After changing the JSON successfully, we're now ready to save to the database. This is going to reflect on the app on the right. So after we log out from the app and log back in, we're going to see the changes reflected. We can now see that knowledge is the caption of the KB element.
For our constraints, we had a schedule of about 1 semester, which was about 15 to 16 weeks we had to work on the project. As for the cost, we were using open source software, so we didn't have a cost. We were using a JSON editor, which was open source. As for our scope, we originally were editing small pieces of JSON and validating that, which was easier, but instead we had to validate an entire UI layout, which is a little bit more difficult, but we got that. For the applicable standards, since we're using open source software, I went to the open standard paradigm. Since we were using Angular to make the JSON editor a component, we used the Angular style guide, and we also were using the JSON standard because we were editing JSON, and JSON schema standard when we were making the schema. And as for trade-offs, we have alternate designs we considered. We considered having only one editor instead of 2 side by side. Instead of a tree view and text view, only one of them, just a text view, but it seemed better for the user to have both. And when we were loading schema, we originally wanted to load the schema from we only wanted to load the schema from the server, but instead we loaded it from a local file because they didn't have the server set up for loading that part.
In the end, we got to learn a new technology and work in a real-world setting, making this experience much more rewarding than just completing a programming assignment. And for that, we'd like to say thank you. Thank you to Sunview and thank you to USF for this experience.